I love you.
Welcome back, Couch Potatoes. Yet again, you're tired of the movies. You want us to talk TV, and we're coming at you with TV.
So much TV.
I'm the Green Traveler.
Oh yeah, you are the Green Traveler, and I am the Faceless Leon. This is a podcast about movies and TV, and there might be some spoilers ahead, but we'll try to let you know when they're coming. And sometimes we talk about stuff that's going on in the world, but that is not our focus. Movies, TV. That's just shtick right there. So yeah, what do we talk about?
Well, you'll find out, Couch Potatoes, when you watch or listen to us, that the TV talks is mostly only going to be shows that we actually like.
That's true.
Unlike with movies where it's a 2-hour commitment and you can sit through it all and then complain about the bad ones. With television, I think it's unfair to complain about them if you don't give them the full, if you don't view the full package, if you don't see everything that they offer, it's unfair to complain about a show if you've only seen 2 episodes out of like 3 seasons.
Right. You got to at least watch the whole season before you give it some kind of a review, which we've done 1 season here of Hannibal, based off of The Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, who also famously wrote Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. Which is what made most of these characters famous. I mean, the books were pretty popular, but Silence of the Lambs with Sir Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter. That's what really drove these characters home for everybody. For sure. And it wasn't even the first Hannibal movie to come out, but it was the one that cemented it into our pop culture, I'd say. Yeah, Red Dragon came before this, I think. No, actually, Red Dragon I think was the last Anthony Hopkins one that they did. But they did a interpretation of Red Dragon called Manhunter. But you'll find that because with television you have I think it's only fair to watch all of it before you talk about it. We're only going to talk about shows that we do like Hannibal. Hannibal is the last show that I watched on a regular basis. That might be true for me. As well. Besides things that have come out on streaming services, but that's totally different than airing on TV. Not including the binge watch shows that that's how they want you to watch. I'm talking they aired it 1 episode a week. It was regularly scheduled television. This was the last show that captured my interest like that, because that's how I watch shows. I'm just not a binge watcher by myself. I have to have somebody there that forces me to binge watch. But I love this show enough that I was able to somewhat binge watch it. Season 1 has 13 episodes, and it only took me 1 month to watch it. Hey, I mean, it's intriguing enough that you do want to keep on going, I would say. Yeah. If you are a regular binge watcher, you will definitely feel the pull, especially in the... I mean, there was only 3 seasons of this show, which I think is a shame, personally. Yeah, we'll talk about that. That's pretty sad stuff for me. That's kind of why I fell out of television, was because of how this show was treated. So many people didn't have faith in it. Yeah, it's very elevated, and I think producers were like, I don't think we're going to be able to keep on selling this. Because nobody was watching it. Yeah. The people who were watching it loved it and was telling everybody to watch it. And the people who were not watching it were like, we don't fucking care. Right. It's just like, we like dumb entertainment. And it's like, no, this is good. This is super entertaining. There's so much thought behind this. It's got a message. It's got stuff you can analyze. It makes you think about what it's like to just be a messed up human being. Like this, like you said, so much thought put behind it that is elevated to a level that I would call fine art. This is This is about as refined and sophisticated as television can get.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, because it's like, in this fictionalized world, it's not putting forth people that you like. You watch them and you're like, I want to emulate these people. They're all kind of messed up individuals. You can relate to them, but you're not like, I want to go out and emulate them. Whereas with shows like, reality shows like Tiger King and all that, a lot of people are like, oh, it makes me feel better about my life, because mine's not as messed up as these. But then you work in the retail industry and you realize that people emulate these fuckers.
Yeah.
They go out there and they act like the people from the Tiger King, and they act like people from reality shows because, they see that and they find it entertaining because that's what it is. It's entertainment value.
Yeah.
And it's like it's true events and everything, but it just puts forth the wrong people to be emulated. If you're going to put forth reality show, do something on fucking like Mr. Rogers or, somebody that inspires people. These people don't inspire. They're just shit human beings who live shit lives. Let's forget about them. Let them fade into the background.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't know how much of the Tiger King show you watched.
Like 2 or 3 episodes, and I was like, I hate everybody in this that's involved.
So I think the reason, I think my argument against what you said is that it's not really a reality TV show. It's more of a journalist documentary type thing.
I agree. I'm saying reality TV and Tiger King. I think I lumped them together. I think they're all drivel.
Okay, that's a fair opinion. But
I can't stand how much it's taken over society because you and I have worked in retail industry,
right?
And everyone treats retail workers like shit, like nearly everyone. And I blame that kind of television because they see these celebrities treating each other like shit and treating everybody else like shit. And it's like, yeah, we don't have to be nice to people. We can go in and yell at people until they give me what I want because I saw it on a reality TV show.
Right. Yeah, they definitely there's definitely those kind of people in the Tiger King show. Okay, so to be fair, it is a docu-series on a reality TV show personality because they were going to make him into a reality TV show star.
Also, just realized that I was like, we're not going to shit on movies we haven't seen everything of. But I'm like, I've only seen 3 episodes of Tiger King. Here I am shitting all over it. But no, it's the reason we won't be reviewing those kind of shows, though, is because I can't sit through them. Even with people, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go in the other room. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to do something better with my time because I don't like these characters. But that said, I do recommend watching a show about a bunch of serial killers and lots of blood.
Yeah. Who you should not also emulate. Do not.
Well, but again, I don't think this movie puts any of these characters forth as being lovable to the point where you want to emulate them. They're all flawed to the point where you can relate to them and feel sorry for them, but at the same time, you don't want to be any of these characters. I don't think.
No. I haven't actually finished the 3rd season quite yet. Either, but I really do like Lawrence Fishburne's Jack Crawford. If there was anybody that I would want to be like in this show, it would be him.
He has some redeemable qualities. There's one thing that I don't like about his character, and we'll get into that when we start talking the show, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's get the cast out of the way first because everybody in this show is
stellar.
So your main character is Will Graham, played by Hugh Dancy, who is an English actor playing a New England character
from Virginia.
He's amazing. He's got a great. When I first watched this, I thought he was American because English actors are amazing at that.
Yeah. Sometimes you do have a very stereotypical English to American accent. It's typically pretty passable, I would say. I don't know how they're able to make their accent so flat for us. but they also have like a higher register than their normal voice, I feel like for example, not to shit on Dan Cook, but when he does Legion, he definitely has a touch of a higher ring than when he has, his normal everyday English accent voice. But it really works for that particular character. I'm not gonna, so I'm not shitting on him. He's also extremely talented person, but I had no idea Hugh Dancy was English.
Right. I watched an interview and I was like, wait a second. It's like when you watch Charlie Cox from Daredevil.
Yeah, I had no. In fact, I think they kind of look similar, and I kind of got them confused at one point when we were watching this live on TV. It was around the same time that Daredevil was coming out, wasn't it?
I think they were close. Yeah. Maybe like first season of Daredevil was like last season of Hannibal, maybe. But Will Graham is he's on the spectrum. That like when I first watched the show, I'd missed that entirely. I didn't realize that he was
he has autism, a form of autism. I do think that is also mentioned later in the show that he was never formally diagnosed. That is his self-diagnosis.
But I mean, when I watched this season this time with that in mind, it felt, because there's so many, like, when I first watched this, there's so many nitpicks I had with his acting, with his character, because I was like, man, your character is so, socially awkward at times.
Right.
That, like, I was just like, I don't understand what they're, but then when I rewatched it, I'm like, oh, he's autistic.
Mm-hmm.
It made everything make sense because there was like a pattern to a lot of his characterizations that I loved. It's like when you watch it realizing that he's autistic, you realize that Hugh Dancy put a lot of work into this character.
Right.
Because there's so many nuances that his character does that's just, very tiny ticks.
Right. I knew a lot less about autism the first time we watched this, for certain. So I definitely noticed the same disconnect that you did. But it was definitely a good choices on Hugh Dancy's part. He's very, very talented at what he does. But beyond that, he is not a formal agent of the FBI, but he does work with the FBI under Jack Crawford, and
for the most part, he's like a teacher too.
He is a professor at the FBI Academy, but he was at one point on the field, and then Jack Crawford comes and brings him back on the field because he has a very special way of looking at a crime scene. He is
true empath.
That is what Hannibal refers to him as a true empath, and I believe that kind of defines his character even more than his autism.
Yeah.
Is that he is able to put himself into anyone's shoes, including these heinous murderers.
Yeah, like he goes to a crime scene, he takes in like all the clues around him, and he just reconstructs what happened.
Yep, in his mind.
And how they do that, like their way of presenting that visually, I love. Like, it like shows him just like, kind of meditating at the crime scene, like, he's zoning out, and then there's like a grandfather clock pendulum that like swings back and forth in blackness, and it just like as it swings, like bits of the scene just kind of like reverse in time. And
also throughout the show, all 3 seasons, the metronome that swinging back and forth, the pendulum thing, just keeps on popping up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shit like that. This shows, we'll talk about the symbolism, I'm sure, but there is a lot of symbolism in this show.
And it's beautiful. Like, all of it is beautiful. But moving on from Hugh Dancy, except for one last fun fact about Hugh, I haven't actually seen him in anything else but King Arthur. We were talking that Clive Owen King Arthur movie a while back, and I didn't realize he's in that. He's Galahad.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. I never really realized it. I'll have to rewatch it and be like, I know him better now.
Huh.
The other main character, the one that's got a lot to live up to, who plays Hannibal Lecter, is Mads Mikkelsen, and this is my first run-in with Mads Mikkelsen. You know, this is the first time I saw him as an actor, and I was like, man, I love this guy. And then he was in Casino Royale, and I was like, man, he's a good Bond villain. And then he was in Rogue One, and I was like, man, he's one of the few things I like about this movie.
He was good in that movie, though.
He is.
Yeah, Mads, like, when we started watching this show, I think we both became instant fans of Mads. Like, I could watch anything with him in it, for sure.
Oh, agree.
Even porn. I mean, I would be very happy.
Yeah, he's a very handsome man.
I shouldn't probably objectify Mads Mikkelsen. I'm sorry, Mads.
I'm sorry, Mads, yeah. But that said, if you wanted to find a new market, you have two fans here.
Yes. Yes, you do. Anyways, Dr. Hannibal Lecter is sophistication in a nutshell. I mean, that.
Yeah, he's a classy man. He's a gentleman.
Suits, operas, ballets, all sorts of high class functions.
Clean cut, well dressed, throws his own parties.
Yeah, own parties, which he does the cooking for, and the food. Oh my god. The scenes with the food.
The best cuts of meat.
Oh, yeah, he's got the best cuts of meat.
Yeah, that's the most disturbing part about this entire show for me, is if you know the story of Hannibal Lecter, spoilers if you don't, which I feel like there's got to be nobody out there who doesn't know.
It's such an iconic character at this point.
Everybody has to know he's a cannibal.
Yes.
And Hannibal the cannibal. And just the most gruesome aspect of this show is the cooking scenes. They show you him preparing these like elaborate, lustrous meals using humans most of the time. Like, we never really see him cutting up human bodies too much.
It is definitely implied that they're human body parts that he is using. And occasionally they do show like a limb or something in his freezer.
Yeah, but it's just like, you know, a lot of the times, you know, he does cook with veal. He will cook with, you know, he's cooking beef. He's cooking pig. Like, there are times when he's actually cooking a real meal without human flesh. But when he is cooking it with human flesh, they're very good about implying that. Yes. And they make it look so tasty. And I'm a vegetarian.
I know. I at the time when we were watching this, I think we were both vegetarian, and we were both like, damn.
Right. It's like, how that's the most gruesome part of that show is, you know, it's a disgusting thing, you know, to watch him, you know, cook a human like that, but it makes it look so good. And it's like, how dare this show make me hunger for this?
It's like, Mads could cook for me anytime. But anyhow, I suppose we should talk about Dr. Lecter's relationship with Graham. But maybe it would be easier to do if we discuss Lauren Fishburne's character first, because he kind of draws them together.
Yeah, because he brings Will Graham back into the field, and the toll that Will Graham's, you know, true empathy takes on him, you know, starts to, you know, weigh on his mind a lot. And so, as you said, Jack Crawford, Lawrence Fishburne, sends Will to a psychiatrist who he just kind of like they just kind of randomly meet. Like, this entire story is, I mean, there's reasons why they meet, but it feels random almost.
It does feel a little bit random. I feel like Jack and Hannibal at the beginning of this show just know about each other on the professional level, and by the end of the season, they are good friends.
Yeah, well, Hannibal's such a charismatic person. He makes friends with everyone.
But Jack Crawford task is to take down serial killers.
On the eastern, like mostly on the eastern central area of the United States, which I will say is one of my least favorite aspects of this show. And it's a problem with many TV shows is how quickly they just hop across the United States.
Right. Yeah.
There's so many times, like there's 4 or 5 times in season 1 where it's like 2 characters just drive out to Minnesota and they act like that's just a normal...
From Virginia, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, we're here in Minnesota now, and it's like, that's a 20-hour drive. And you made it seem like it happened in the course of a day, which means you fuckers are tired.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've been sitting all day, and they're just like walking around acting just like, man, somebody was killed right in this barn here. And I'm just like, you just drove 20 hours. Are you not tired at all? Like so many times in this show.
I don't know. Maybe the FBI has good money to give out for plane tickets.
Throughout most of every time they go somewhere, they make a point to show them in cars because they have a scene in a car somewhere. Almost all the time. It's a problem that most shows have. A lot of TV, especially Law and Order kind of shows like this. They just hop across the Eastern Coast like it's nothing. It's like, I know that it does take, probably only 2 hours to get to certain states on the Eastern Coast.
Right. They're kind of crunched in together there.
But they make it seem like, space has no, issue whatsoever to these people.
They're all time travelers.
So that's always something that really bothers me. But, Jack being the head of this division, which includes other fun characters that we won't spend too much time on, like Brian Zeller, who's played by Aaron Abrams,
and Jimmy Price. They're played by Scott Thompson. They're kind of
buddy cop, buddy forensic people.
Buddy forensics, yeah. And there is definitely some fun conversation between them. Their humor is pretty great, but it's extremely morbid. And they are also paired. The other forensic member is Beverly Katz.
And I love her. I thought she was amazing. Who's played by Hetty Ann Park.
Yes, she is great. I wish that there was more of her in the show.
Yeah, I agree. I like those two a lot too. They seem like a fun. I kind of just ship them, honestly.
I think that would be really fun if that would have happened in this show. If it had 3 more seasons, maybe.
Yeah, which this show originally had 6 and 7 season plan. Had 7 originally, and he shortened it to 6, and then eventually they had to just cut it at 3. Sadly. That's his little forensics team with Will Graham. Yeah. And he sends him, to meet Mads, to meet Hannibal Lecter, to get evaluated. And once Hannibal, he sinks his fishhooks in the Will, kind of. They're great friends. They develop a very unprofessional relationship.
Right. And Hannibal's definitely the impetus for that. He does not want to be considered his psychiatrist. Well, I think actually at first Will's like, I don't want a psychiatrist. And
Hannibal's like, how about a friend?
Hannibal's like, I've already signed your papers. So our professional relationship doesn't have to take place, but I do think you're interesting.
Yeah, he's like, let's be friends. And their friendship is it is great. That's kind of the disturbing part of the show is they deal with a lot of serial killers throughout season 13 and a lot of really unique and cool serial killers that we'll talk about. But specifically with Hannibal, he seems so normal. He's such a charismatic person. He seems like nothing's wrong. He deals with a lot of crazy things, and he's able to just, take a deep breath, take it in, be calm, and nobody suspects him.
Right. He is also the only character who is obviously European. And so if they do think anything's peculiar about him, they just chalk it up to his European culturalization.
Yeah, I don't remember where Hannibal himself is from, but Mads is Danish. So they could.
Right. I don't think it's spoiling anything to say. I think they say Lithuania in the 3rd season. I'm not sure. But there's one more very important character that we have not talked about. Dr. Alana Bloom. Caroline DeVarnis. She like we said earlier, everyone is excellently played. Actually, there's one more character that we should mention too, but two. There's a lot of characters.
There's a lot of good characters. There's one easy one to lump with Alana though, and that's Freddie Lounds, because both of these characters were male in the novel. And one of the beauties of this show is, it realizes not every character has to be a white man. And so it switches those two roles, and I think it did so perfectly. Like, what they did with Freddie Lounds is amazing, but specifically what they do with Alana Bloom, making her Will Graham's love interest even, is it's very weird and great. And it's
she actually works for the FBI. And Hannibal is just her colleague. She is also a psychiatrist, and she does not want to evaluate Will Graham
because of the personal relationship.
Yes, because she likes him as a person, and she thinks she would not be able to be impartial. So she passes him off to Hannibal Lecter, and that's really how their relationship starts. But she thinks Hannibal's just a stand-up guy. You kind of lumped her in with Freddie Lounds. Freddie Lounds it's kind of interesting. I think you did that because they kind of foil each other a little bit too. She is a reporter, and she has a very opposite opinion of Will Graham. She thinks that he is a serial killer waiting to happen.
That plays into a lot of the drive of season 1. Is she calls in the question a lot of Will Graham's personality traits, and it's just like, well, how can he make such leap from point A to point B and find this serial killer? And Will's like, well, it's bad bookkeeping. That's all it was that led me to this one serial killer. But as his mental capacity kind of dwindles, he starts to kind of believe her. He starts to question her with himself. He's like, am I crazy? Am I a serial killer? And Freddie Lounds is a kind of a smut journalist.
Right. She is not well respected in her community because she is willing to do unethical things to get her information.
One of the unethical things is, sneaking on the crime scenes and taking photos of dead bodies and stuff before anything's been cleared by the police. She just kind of sneaks up through the things.
And something that we should mention is the reason why police hold back information is so that suspects that may still be at large don't catch on that they're getting close. And so she fucks that up.
Yeah, or even so that you can manipulate a witness or somebody. That's not a witness, but like, let's say you bring somebody in for questioning and they give you information that's not been shared with the public about the crime scene. Then you immediately know this person knows things about the crime scene that nobody else does. And she does that too, where she'll go in and she'll give, because of her photos and stuff, people now have a clear, understanding of what the crime scene was. And now there's no possibility of a killer making that slip up. But one of the cool things that happens with her, and it's a bit of a spoiler, so I won't go into it. I'll just say she gets kidnapped by a serial killer somewhere around the show. And that serial killer is Abel Gideon, played by the amazing Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, he does a great job in this, I will say.
That's one of the best castings. And like this show is great with casting, but one of the fun, just supporting character, doesn't have to be brilliant. They cast comedian Eddie Izzard as this ruthless serial killer, and I love it. He puts out a great performance.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk too much about Gideon, like his storyline, without giving away too much, because he is a pretty integral part as a red herring. I think by the time that his storyline comes around, you understand that it is a red herring, so there's a lot of dramatic irony there. But yeah, he just does a fantastic job. His scenes with Mads are great. There's just so many things. but his character brings in another character famous from that film that everybody knows, Dr. Chilton. He is eventually the psychiatrist who has Hannibal under his ward, but at this point he has Abel under his ward.
Yeah, and him and Hannibal at this point are also colleagues of a kind.
Right, kind of, almost on the same level as him and Dr. Bloom, but
Hannibal's more willing to talk bad medicine with Chilton. You know, Lana's a very upfront, very strict by the rule psychiatrist, but Hannibal and Frederick Chilton are willing to, you know, break some codes,
be a little unorthodox to get results.
Because, you know, there's a lot about the human mind we don't know, and they're of the opinion that we're never going to know that stuff if we keep playing nice with, you know, people like this, which, you know, I disagree with that viewpoint. I think, you know, the insane asylums of the past have gone away mostly for a reason.
Right, yes. Oh, definitely. They were horrendous.
And, you know, I don't think we should ever return to that kind of thing. I do agree that there's a lot of gray area with mental health issues, but I think there's better ways to go about that than, you know, experimenting on guinea pigs like this.
I do think there's still a place for people who are ill and extremely violent. Like, obviously, you have to protect the rest of society, but you can be humane. You can still treat them as humans. You just have to be more careful with them. Talking about Chilton, I think we should say it was played by Raul Esparza. I think that's correct. But anyways, he did a fantastic job. So, he did so well of emulating the guy who played him in the movies.
Well, that character, the thing is too with that character is like he's meant to be hated. He's that bad kind of doctor that it's like he's not in the business to help. He's in the business just to, you know, make money and to make a name.
He's very pompous, self-adoring. He does a great job, and I love his performance. I think I like him more than the guy from the movie, but he just emulated that performance so well. Like, nobody else even attempted to do that in the show, which, you know, you want your actors to make their own choices, but I think his choice to emulate that other performance was just great.
It fits with the characters that they all put forth too. You know, it's like they all have a different, you know, feel, a different adaptation to these characters than the movie did, except for him. And I feel like that character fits so well in this world still.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially in contrast to Hannibal. Because they do try to do a lot to make them feel similar in a way.
Yeah, they definitely bond over, you know, bad treatment. Because, like, one of the things that I thought was fun with this show is, you know, as it's developed by Brian Fuller. You know, Brian Fuller did, you know, he was on Heroes for a little bit. He was a writer on Heroes. He was the showrunner for Pushing Daisies and American Gods. Yeah, I liked him. I even liked American Gods. I haven't seen season 2 of American Gods, but, you know, that was his show after this. And he definitely has that style of, you know, as you said, it's very artful.
Yeah.
But one of the fun things about this show is, as Brian Fuller put it, if you didn't know anything about Hannibal Lecter going into this, you would be just as surprised as all the other characters when he comes out of the woodwork, because they could have treated a lot of this entire show as a mystery, but they didn't go that route because, you know, everybody knows Hannibal. You know who he is. Exactly. But if you didn't,
it's almost like doing a Batman show and not saying that Batman's Bruce Wayne. Did I spoil it?
But when he starts treating Will Graham very badly, treating psychologically, that is, as a psychiatrist, you know, Will starts to present symptoms of a specific disease, or a condition, I should say, not a disease. And Hannibal just covers it up. He kind of just sweeps it under the rug because he wants to investigate it further. He wants to see, he's like, I'm his friend. I won't let him go too far. I'll know when to cut the cord on this. And if you didn't know Hannibal was a cannibal, you could literally just watch this as him being just a bad psychiatrist. Because of the scenes with him and Frederick. Because they talk about how far are they willing to go with patients just to, further explore the mind.
Yeah, it could take a Dr. Frankenstein approach rather than a serial killer approach. You're right.
Mr. Frankenstein. He failed his tests.
Oh, did he?
I do think, just to finish out the cast of characters, there's two very small other characters that we'll just blip over real fast. There's Abigail Hobbs, played by Casey Roll, who is the daughter of the first serial killer that Will catches when he comes back. Episode 1, he catches a serial killer named Garrett Jacob Hobbs. And, because of how he catches that killer, he develops a relationship with the killer's daughter, Abigail, and kind of starts to see himself as a foster father, which weighs on him mentally again, with his true empath.
And definitely Garrett Jacob Hobbs haunts him throughout because he might have stepped a little bit too far into his shoes is kind of what goes on.
Yeah, because he's just stepping back into the water and he just immediately goes right into this guy. And so it just, it just, fishing is a big metaphor in the whole show. And again, with the fish hooks, it sinks into Will's brain. It's this character just will not leave. He just starts to emulate this character almost sometimes. And that's his big worry when he starts to go insane is, did I actually catch a killer or am I the killer? The other character to talk about, the big name, probably the biggest name on the entire show, and she has the smallest part, is Bedelia du Maurier, who is Hannibal's psychiatrist, played by Gillian Anderson of X-Files. When she made an appearance, I fell in love with her immediately again, because I love Gillian Anderson. She is an amazing actor.
She does a great job in this series. She kind of becomes increasingly more important throughout the show. But for this, she is honestly the most human aspect of Hannibal.
Yeah, she's his psychiatrist. That's kind of what, he tells. I don't know if he tells her everything. You're not really clear in season 1, but you get the implication she knows what Hannibal is up to. You get these ideas that she has looked into his mind enough that she has seen the monster, and yet maybe she's okay with, and who knows with season 1. It's not a spoiler to say that at the end of season 1, you really don't know where she lies with this character.
No.
But she's amazing. She's so good in this role.
Yeah. I kind of wish that we had... I don't want this to be too much longer, but I do want to talk about the symbolism a little bit. So one of the big things is that Garrett Jacob Hobbs, before they know who he is, everybody gets a serial killer name in the papers. And his name was the Minnesota Shrike.
Yeah. Great name.
A great name. But he's also a hunter. So eventually... Will starts to see when he's in his imagination zone, and then later when he gets sick, he sees a deer, always, but a stag. Thank you, but the stag always has feathers. Always, because and I should say that a shrike, for people who don't know, is a carrion eating bird. But what they do is they take their prey and they throw them onto antlers or branches.
And that's what Garrett Jacob Hobbs was famous for. One of the things that helped Will Graham catch the Minnesota Shrike, Garrett Jacob Hobbs, was another serial killer who was Hannibal. Who is they call him
the Chesapeake Ripper.
Chesapeake Ripper. They don't know that the Chesapeake Ripper was the copycat that helped Will find Garrett Jacob Hobbs. But Hannibal sees that, Will is having trouble finding this man. And so he basically just hand delivers him a perfect crime scene.
Right.
Where he just, he copies the kill perfectly. but there's so many nuances to how he kills this person that Will immediately figures out who, like, the person he's looking for. Yeah, he knows it's not the same person, and he understands the kind of person he is looking for now. He gets it. And that's where that symbolism of, in his imagination, when he sees this stag with the feathers, he's not seeing the Shrike. He's seeing that weird blend that, he's seeing that this copycat and the Shrike, because it's something he's searching for. He knows there's a copycat out there and he's got to find it, but it's not at the front of his mind. It's always playing at him. It's always toying with him.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes the stag represents Mads, but at sometimes it represents himself. They do a lot of blending the two characters together, and it's great.
Yeah, especially near the end of the season. Slight spoilers ahead for those who don't want the spoilers. Near the end of the season, the stag in his mind, when he starts to go crazy, takes the form of a man with antlers. Just a man, just completely like a black latex, like it's not black latex suit, but it's like it's just like a skeleton.
Probably some makeup and CGI involved.
But it's just like a skeleton looking, like a Wendigo. I think would be a better term for it almost. And he sees that, but one of the most beautiful things is when he starts to kind of play with the idea that it is Hannibal. When that idea enters Will Graham's head, in his hallucination, he sees the stag and Hannibal become one. And it's a great moment because, at the same time, that's when he's questioning himself the most, too. So, like, as you said, it represents Mads and it represents Will. And at that moment, it's like all three of them became one thing. And it was such a good moment. I love this show so much because of that symbolism.
There is definitely a lot of moments in this show where there is no dialogue going on. There's just score and imagery. And there's so much storytelling being done in that moment. Like, there's definitely times where shows or movies, I would say more typically movies, have moments where there is no dialogue, just imagery. But I feel like this is the place where I've seen it done the best, because there are instances when that happens where it's just a trippy moment, and sometimes the imagery does not play into the story enough for it to really work. But the cinematographer and the editors and everything, they did a great job of making the imagery really match the story, and it's very intriguing
and showcasing that imagery beautifully too. It's one of the bigger, or two of the bigger influences for this show, for Brian Fuller, that is David Lynch and Stanley Kubrick, and you get that with how he uses the imagery. Like as you said, like David Lynch films filled with symbols, motifs, like themes, everything. But with Stanley Kubrick, 2001: Space Odyssey, an amazing fucking movie.
Yeah.
And it's because it can grasp you and entertain you without dialogue.
Yeah.
The first 20 minutes of that movie is just, apes. it's apes just, fighting each other and screeching and, throwing bones, and, it's entertaining still. And he uses, classical music when they go into space, and there's like just long shots of, spaceships and classical music playing. But the reason people love it is because of how it can show this imagery and entertain you without dialogue, because every movie nowadays feels like it needs to, grab your hand and tug you along. It's like, the audience isn't going to understand, so I got to show them what it means. No, we're smart people. We can watch this stuff and figure it out. We don't need... we don't need an hour's worth of exposition scenes dumped on me to figure out a mystery or anything. We can figure it out through how you show it to us. And that's one of the beauties of this show.
Kind of going off that, I am a firm believer that you don't have to make your art to please everyone. Like, you can make a movie that only certain people are going to get everything about it. Like, obviously, when you make a movie, you're trying to make some money and you want people to go see it. But if there's a couple of scenes in your movie that only a third of your audience is going to understand, that's okay. I mean, it just shows that you're not willing to compromise your vision.
Yeah, but that's the tragedy of this show. It has a stellar cast, stellar directing. Brian Fuller does a great job at, running the whole thing. They even had to prepare, those scenes where you watch Hannibal Lecter make these human flesh. They had Jose Andres of the World Central Kitchen as a kind of like a consulting producer for those scenes, to make it look entertaining, to make it look delicious, because he's, if you don't know, World Central Kitchen helps with natural disasters. If there's a natural disaster, World Central Kitchen goes there and it feeds people. Wow. And, it's like, when there's a natural disaster, that's the last thing you're thinking about is getting your meals. But, Jose Andres was helped with this show. And it's like this show made this beautiful, fine art masterpiece, but it didn't entertain people. It's the artist's vision, almost wholly presented to you. I don't know if studio affected much of it. They definitely affected season 3, but we haven't gotten there. But it's wholly entertaining. It's beautiful. Serial killing is obviously terrible.
Right. It does sell though.
But exactly, it sells. People love this kind of crime. They love crime on television.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the best crime shows.
I would definitely agree with that.
Almost fully what the artist wanted you to see is delivered here. And it flopped. It didn't entertain people. It doesn't have those quirky, stupid things that I hate in television, but everybody else loves.
If this had come out a couple years later for a streaming service, I think it could have done better. Because like you said, when people are watching television, the ratings is all that matters to producers. And that's a shame. I mean, that's why there's only one season of Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, it's sad. But it's, that's the thing with this show is they had, 7 seasons planned. The first 3 were going to be original. Then they were going to do The Red Dragon. And then Silence of the Lambs, and then another original show to end it. They had this big plan, but because people weren't watching, they had to kind of crunch everything into that last season, which, we'll get there in a year or so. But that's just the sad thing is they had a vision for this show and it just kind of got crushed. But I guess there is hope for another season because, Mads Mikkelsen's apparently said that he's willing to return. And Brian Fuller has said, Brian Fuller's got a plan, I guess. So it's, there's hope for it. Maybe they'll be able to put it out on Netflix or a streaming service.
I think they'd be able to get Fishburne back. I don't know what Dancy's doing. Lawrence Fishburne, from his career record, really does seem willing to return to projects.
Well, he's in everything.
He is in everything.
Yeah, he's that actor that, he just pops up and it's like, yeah, of course Lawrence Fishburne's in this. He's, yeah, John Wick, yeah, of course. Oh, yeah, Matrix, yeah, there he is.
Yeah, there he is.
Their show on television, Blackish.
One actor that I have always wanted to meet and congratulate on his body of work because, like you said, he's in freaking everything and he never does a bad job.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's in everything, and even though he always seems like the same character and everything, at the same time, he seems like a different character.
Yeah, he does a very good job of playing moderate degrees of himself.
I remembered, I mentioned at the beginning, one thing I didn't like about his character is there is a split halfway through season 1 where, for the build-up of halfway through season 1, Will's like, I don't know, I think I'm going crazier each time. And Jack's like, no, do more. And then there's just a random episode where they just flip completely, where Will realizes he's going crazy, but he's like, no, I want to keep helping. I want to do more. And Jack's like, I think you need to back off. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? It literally was back-to-back episode where it's just like,
I thought that they actually did this flip pretty well, personally. There was definitely an incident that happened where Jack was like, "Oh, I should have been listening to him. I should take him off of this." but he still lets him go because Will's like, no, I can do it. And that was the point where I did get mad at Jack, because he should have taken his own instinct at that point and taken him off.
Yeah, especially at that point. But and it comes after a flashback where Jack is reminded of an old FBI agent that he is responsible for the death of. So it's like, that's going through Jack's mind. I get that. I get the flip. I do understand it because they do build it up. It just felt weird from the end of one episode to the beginning of the next that it was just so immediate. Oh, but the last thing we should talk about before we sign off, I know we're running long on this one already, are the serial killers. Yeah, this show puts forth quite a few, especially in season 1, just quite a few different serial killers. There's one guy who presents his kills as a totem pole. That's my favorite one. That one's really unique. There's the Minnesota Strike, the Ripper.
I really like the mushroom guy idea. I didn't really like when they finally revealed who it was. I wasn't. It kind of fell flat a little bit, but the idea was amazing, to use living human bodies as fertilizer for mushrooms.
Yeah, it's gross, and like it makes you just feel so bad for the killed people.
Somebody in the writing room had a great idea there.
Or research something god awful that actually happened.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Another cool one was the lady who she has a mental condition where she can't see faces.
Right.
And so she kills people because she's thinking they're wearing masks or whatever. She's trying to remove the mask from their head. Right. And it's so gruesome, but like at the same time you feel so bad for her because she's presented as she's not a killer. She doesn't want to kill.
Yeah, she also thinks she's dead, I think, is part of her story too.
Yeah, because she's so dead to the world. Even like, yeah, she does think she's dead, but also it's like the fact that she doesn't connect with anybody, and she's so affected by this illness that it's really upsetting. But there's so many different and unique serial killers that, like, most often it's just a really cool idea. It's like that's kind of always the fun with fictional serial killers is their MO, their way of doing things.
I think the fact that there are so many serial killers in this is kind of what makes it feel I feel like it was their attempt to draw in like the CSI audience, because definitely at the beginning of this show there is a monster of the week feel to it, while the serial storyline is going on in the background, and I think later on they kind of drop that, and I think that's good for the show.
Yeah, because even though there are a lot of deaths and killers in America, believing that there's this many serial killers really makes it hard for me to live comfortably.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, jeez.
We'll come back with season 2 sometime.
I'm the Faceless Leon.
And I'm the Green Traveler.
Safe travels, everyone. Green and Faceless on the Couch is a proud production of FictionWorks 19. We plan to publish new episodes of this podcast every Thursday evening. If you'd like to give us a comment, please visit us at facebook.com/greenandfaceless. There you'll find many links to our show and to our website. Thanks for listening.